Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. From research to the enterprise, our customers rely on us for the ultimate Rocky Linux, Warewulf, and Apptainer support escalation. We provide deep development capabilities and solutions, all delivered in the collaborative spirit of open source.
Who are we?
Who are we? Yes. Okay. So welcome, you guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to be talking today about simplifying HPC, a first look at Warewulf's new web UI and automation API. So Jonathan, please introduce yourself and tell us how long you have been waiting for this moment.
Oh, thanks, Rose. So yeah, my name's Jonathan Anderson, and I'm an HPC engineer here with CIQ. And I came to CIQ in large part because of Warewulf. And I work on other things here for sure. But the person who first uttered CIQ's existence in my presence was, "Hey, Greg's working on that Warewulf thing again. We should probably look into that." And that plus another couple LinkedIn posts from people, in my network, got me looking at CIQ. So it's been a real pleasure to be a part of the project and increasingly so over time. But yeah, I've been trying to advocate for and incentivize a web interface for Warewulf for a couple of years now. And it's really, really cool to see it turning into a real thing that people are excited to use and interested in getting access to. So I'm excited to show it off today.
Yes, I am very excited as well. I don't think much more introduction really needs to be made, but we are going to share with you guys as well a little blog post that has come out about Warewulf, and there's a couple more details in there. So we'll be sharing that link with you. Thank you, Jess, behind the scenes, for doing that for everybody. So we have done a little bit of introductions. Let's see. Oh, we've got 31 people here. That's so cool. I am we were joking the other day that someone said, "Oh, hey, thanks for, reposting that we're going to be doing this webinar. We've doubled the amount of people that have signed up." And, Jonathan and I kind of jokingly went, "Oh yeah, from 1 to 2." Because it's so funny. Like when you're doing, open source projects, like there's a lot of people in the community, but, when things are first beginning, you're not really sure where it's going to go. And the explosion of Warewulf these days in this last year or two is just really exciting. So again, thank you everybody for being here. Okay, so Jonathan, let's start. What is it that the Warewulf community has done and just newly released that makes this UI that CIQ has created so awesome?
Awesome. Yeah. So for just real quick for people that don't already know, and presumably if you signed up for a Warewulf webinar, you know this, but Warewulf is a cluster management system, open source, developed in the community and then supported, and we also contribute development from CIQ. And as with most of these tools, it's very command line driven. You SSH into a server and use a Warewulf control system to access it. But as we've tried to get it out in front of more and more people, and especially tried to get it kind of available with your cluster when you first get it, one of the first barriers that we've hit when we talk to system integrators is, does it have a web interface? And there's like a perspective on that that's well,
No.
web admins don't, or sorry, system admins, HPC admins, they don't use a web interface. It doesn't need one. But for one, like a lot of times a web interface like this can just serve as a proxy for the maturity of the project and the capability of the community and the project and the company behind it. So there's a little bit of that, just like fit and finish that it implies for the project. And Warewulf it's getting really good. So we want to make sure it's putting its best foot forward. But I also have a strong opinion about interfaces like this making a product more approachable and more discoverable for new users or even for established users that that have been using it for a while but might not know about new features as they come in, because maybe you don't go dig through all the documentation to see what's new when new versions come out. So we want to use a web interface to highlight the existence of features and how things fit together and make it almost an extension of the documentation. So
how that actually looks in the UI is like that little circle with the question mark next to things.
Yeah, there's some of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
we'll
I
get
mean,
into
I'm
that.
also not an admin, but it's helpful.
But I am opinionated about interfaces, and I mean like how different systems interact with each other. So I wanted to make sure that if we were going to build something like this, it wasn't built in such a way that it was going to be like a pain to administer or a pain to integrate or for us to keep maintained with the upstream project over time.
Mhm.
So the first step for that was to make some kind of programmatic API that we could then use and build from in building an interface. So that's the first thing that we want to show off. And so Werewolf 4.6.1, which came out just at the beginning of this month, introduces a new REST API for Werewolf. And this is kind of our second attempt to create an API for Werewolf, but I think this one's going to take off if we have a downstream for it now. Let me pull. Well, so yeah, so it's if you have Werewolf 461 today, then you have access to this, but you might not know how where it is. Oh, trying to find my share button. Here we go. Here and here
This
and
big green one with the arrow.
yeah, the big green one. Okay, now too many windows layered over each
Yeah,
other.
totally.
So yeah, so if you have Werewolf 461, you have access to this API, but it's disabled by default. And that's because like ultimately Werewolf runs like the all of the stuff that Werewolf changes on your server. It's like root level operations right now. And that's something we might want to not might want to that we want to clean up in the future and might be able to clean up in the future where maybe the Werewolf server can run more unprivileged. But for now, the API is mostly a thin wrapper in front of some relatively privileged operations that occur on your server. So we don't just want to have you upgrade your server and suddenly gain this new uh, um, potential ingress security vulnerability into your server. So the first thing is that it's disabled by default. And if you go to your server configuration, you can see this window too, right? My little
Yep.
terminal window here.
Yep.
Great. So if you go to your werewolf config file, this is at etc werewolf.conf. Oh, not cd, but there we go. We can see that I have this API section down here at the bottom. I think the default config file won't have anything in here, but as documented here, if you put enabled true, you will gain a web interface. Or sorry, not a web interface, an API. And the second thing to be aware of is even if this API is enabled, by default, it's only accessible from the server itself. So other processes on the server could talk to that API. And that's what we do for the web UI that we'll demonstrate in a moment. But that's, again, the default is for it to be as locked down and secure as possible. So for my purposes, and if you want to use the API from outside the server, you need to tell it what networks are allowed to talk to it. So these two settings are default. These are different expressions of the local server. But if you want to add other servers or other networks, you add it here. And again, that's documented here. So that's the situation that I have here in my development environment. And one more step,
I
just
would like
before
to
we're
just
able to
say
show
thank you
things.
for that, Jonathan. Thank you for explaining that and doing this work behind the scenes because that issue is going to come up. And one of the things
Yeah.
I was thinking about. So I really appreciate you highlighting this and making sure that people know not just how to enable it if they want to, but that it is not automatically there. Thank you.
This is one of the best parts of getting this into the community because the first submission of this didn't have it this way, and in fact, we didn't even have filters like this in the initial the pull request. The hey, here's a new API, please incorporate it upstream. And it was through the community process and review with the technical steering committee that additional security controls were added, and it's a huge win. So
Huge.
yeah, I'm really glad that those got in there. The next step, and this was always going to be part of the API, again, it's a largely root capable API, so we want to protect it, is just having it enabled and just having access granted is not authenticating to it, and you must still authenticate to it. So in this REST API section, in the docs, there's a whole section on this new REST API. really we should also have this API configuration section in here. So apologies for splitting it across two different places, but there's this REST API section that tells you how to set up this new configuration file in the same directory, werewolf/auth.conf. And this is where you can define users that are able to access this REST API. And so we ship a default file there that's like doesn't have a password and won't work at all because there's no password. Um, but there's information here for how to generate a password hash and how to update this file. It's not integrated into the command line experience so far. You have to go edit this file directly. But in mine, we can see, not werewolf, auth.conf. Ah, there we go. So I have a single user, an admin user, and it has a password hash here. This hash is the super secure representation, the password admin. So again, just for the development purposes, but you should put a secure password here. All of this to get us to this point. So for automation, and this really like an API here opens up so many opportunities for Werewolf. We have hopes and dreams for integrating it into our fuzzball product, for example, in the future. Or you could integrate into it as part of some kind of CI pipeline, or maybe you have a larger like data center management system that you want to add a node into that system and have it automatically put that node into Werewolf. You can do that now with this API. All of that is through the same daemon. There's always been a Werewolf daemon running. Now it just grows a /API directory or path on that daemon when the API is enabled. And then we also have this /docs path enabled, which is an auto-generated little tiny web interface for this API, mostly as a documentation exercise, a self-documentation for it. So we can see, for example, that if we go to /API/nodes, and then it gives us a little example here of how we would access that API with curl, for example, then we can get JSON. It outputs JavaScript object data for that. So this one's already run, but we will click this cancel this, try it out again, and hit execute. And when we do, this is data out of the live system, my live text test system. We see I have a node N1, and it has these 3 profiles and comments and images. And if we scroll down far enough, we'll see the next node and the next node. Or we can roll that back up again, or we could get a single node. And this interface lets us try that as well. I can say I want to see node N1 and execute and get just the data for that node. So again, we don't necessarily expect people would use this interface. This is certainly not the web interface that we're going to show off in a moment. But this is some nice auto-generated, active, try it out level documentation for the API. If you want to build your own automations or use this as part of a larger scripted solution in your environment.
Awesome. I think that overview answered some of the questions, but did you see in the chat and the Q&A, there's a couple of questions?
I haven't, but I'm looking at right now. So, okay, I'll kind of go from bottom up. So, can other methods of auth be used? For example, JWT. So right now, it's just HTTP basic auth with a username and password. Totally open to other forms of authentication, but for the first, like this is the first commit, the first introduction of this API. This is all that's supported today. I wouldn't imagine it's too difficult to add in other authentication schemes, but for now, this is what we have. Yeah, and so next one up, can it auth against an LDAP or Microsoft Active Directory? This one is still no right now because it is just literally authenticating against like the username and password in that file. But one conversation we did have as part of getting the API in the first place was authenticating with PAM. That's the pluggable authentication modules for Linux. And that I think is a really easy next step of supporting PAM authentication for this, and then from that we could easily authenticate against AD or another LDAP. And yeah, so those are the questions so far.
So there's actually a Q&A section.
Oh, yeah, I'm not looking at that one.
No, I know it's an additional one. So do you see it from Sumit?
I have just found it.
Cool.
What does this REST API for Warewulf do? Oh, okay. So it one of the things that we've been trying to do on the community side of Warewulf is kind of simplify the top level object model for Warewulf. There have been a bunch of like little hangers on, and right now, most everything in Warewulf is a node or a profile or an image or an overlay or a file within an overlay. And so the basic upfront capabilities of this are to create, retrieve, update, and delete those four things, as well as some other operations on them. So a big one is you can build the overlays for a node. That's a thing that is a relatively common operation. You can import an image, which is kind of create, but it's a little bit different because it supports like pointing at a registry and pulling the image into Warewulf. You can do that through the API. You can also build your image in Warewulf, which means like taking your image and making it into a format that is suitable for provisioning out to compute nodes. So all of those operations can be provoked through the API. There are more that even we for the web interface are going to need. And so there will be iteration on this API over time to add additional functionality. But what's there, we're hoping, should remain relatively stable and would just have additional endpoints or additional verbs that you could attach to the API over time.
Awesome. Okay, so this is going to be the last question before we move on so that we can continue. We have like a little list of things we want to show you guys. This is a good question, Alan. He says, do you have an open API description for the API?
So we are building it with an open API library, but I don't know if we have that. Oh, it's probably this. Here it is. So I think it's just this definition as linked through this Swagger documentation that's coming out. I'm not a huge open API expert, so if this is not what you're looking for, let's talk and let's figure out how to get you what you're looking for. But I think this is probably it. And again, that was just available as a link right here in the web interface. Cool.
He says that's
Alan,
it.
agrees.
Cool. Thanks, Alan.
All right. So all of this was in service at CIQ, was in service of building a web interface for the purposes of making Warewulf as a product more approachable and easier to support as something that would be integrated into an overall cluster management solution, both within CIQ and with our integration partners. And so I had this, I was making a suggestion that a good way to do that would be through the Cockpit system. So if people are not familiar, Cockpit, it is another thing that's already available with Rocky Linux. At least 9. I think it's just an 8 as well, but all of my testing has been on 9 so far. So it's often installed by default. It's probably not running by default. But if you start it and it's just a service, then you can log in to Cockpit on your server by default at port 9090. And you log in with your main server credentials. And I can only imagine that this supports like other authentication types depending on how you have your authentication set up for the server. But right now I'm logging in with my standard Unix password on this system. There we go. And it's got all kinds of functionality. So you get like nice graphs and things. You can see what's going on. You can manage packages on your server. I just enabled this daemon down here that's tracking memory and CPU and other utilization metrics over time. One of my favorite things to do with Cockpit is to just straight up, you can use it to manage virtual machines on the system. So if you're used to something like VMware or even Proxmox, if you just want to manage virtual machines on one server, it's very easy to do that all from here and not need a whole other system for it. You can just log in and manage virtual machines on this server through this interface. It's great. But because all of these things existed, we thought, well, perhaps we could just make a plugin for Warewulf for this. And that has two benefits. One is that we don't have to introduce a completely new daemon, a completely new interface, a completely new paradigm for people. And we get to build off of this existing community platform. But the other is that it encourages people to adopt and use this platform. I think Cockpit's great. I think that people would be served well to use it more. So we wanted to try and integrate this Warewulf web experience through this interface, and we've done that here in this Warewulf tab here. It's relatively simple today, but in certain respects that can be a good thing. Just trying to get the data for your system to you in as transparent and useful a way as possible. So right now we have those 4 entities that we described kind of at the top level of Warewulf's object model. We have nodes, we have profiles, we have images, and we have overlays. So if you're not familiar, Warewulf organizes the systems that you're going to boot as nodes. It calls them nodes, and then profiles are a way to they behave very much like nodes, except for they aren't actual nodes. You can configure them however you could configure a node, and then apply a profile to multiple nodes and multiple nodes to a given profile. Or it's many to many. But if you don't know that, if you're new to Warewulf, again, one of the things that we really want to emphasize and want to use an interface like this for is discoverability. So if you log into this and you don't know what a node is, you don't already have 5 of them defined, or it's a new environment for you. We're trying to drop help text in here that tells you what you're looking at, what it's for, what it does, and give pointers into the community documentation too. So I think this one, oh no, maybe if I open it in a new tab. Yeah, there we go. It just didn't want to open it inside of Cockpit. I'll have to look into getting it to do that by default. So give you pointers into the upstream community documentation from this interface for how to learn more about this part of the system. We can learn more about how Warewulf boots. This is all community documentation that's out there, but given the number of questions we get about it, it's maybe not as discoverable as we would like. This makes it right there front and center how nodes get booted, what they are, how they work. Similar things for profiles. We can learn what a profile is and how you use it, where you learn more about it in the documentation. And then if you want to go and edit one of your profiles, they have a number of configuration parameters in here. There's going to be more. This is what we haven't said today, maybe not yet, is that this is not done. We're putting it out for our customers as a tech preview for people to get access to and provide feedback on and see how well it integrates into their environment. And one of the things we're still working on is filling out these editors to have all of the available metadata that you can configure on a node and a profile. But everything that we put in here, we want to, again, have little help text in here that tells you what it is, what it does, why you would make this setting, how it's meant to be used, and make, again, Warewulf configuration, Warewulf use cases more discoverable and approachable for new users and people that just don't know about this specific feature. So I talked about this earlier, but we can build overlays for a node, or we can build overlays for all the nodes, which again is a relatively common operation for a Warewulf cluster. These little alerts go away over time, but we can close them also. And we can import an image. So I have 3 here already. I can see what kernel is in that image. If this image had more than 1, it would list them all here, but each of these only have 1 right now. And I can import one. So the one I usually do for demonstration purposes is just to import an Alpine image in here. And I can import this direct from Docker Hub. Now, an Alpine image isn't going to boot immediately because it doesn't have an init and it doesn't have a kernel. But just, you can import from any registry. You can import from the container registry that we publish Warewulf node images for on GitHub as well, just directly into this interface, and then build that image for use by Warewulf as well from here. And then finally, over here in overlays, if you're not familiar, if you're coming from Warewulf 4.5, let's say, you might be used to there just being kind of two really big overlays. In Warewulf 4.6, we broke that up. So now each function within the standard, what we now call distribution overlays, is represented as a discrete overlay so that can be enabled and disabled individually. So now we have a network manager overlay and an FS tab overlay and other things like that. But one of the things that people often don't know is supported. So overlays can contain templates. I can see that template here. Oh, let's get the managed one. So this is the file that gets distributed on a network manager enabled system to configure network manager for each network interface that you want to configure. And it's a Golang text template, formatted template. But people sometimes don't know that you can easily just see what that template would look like if rendered for a given node. And we're making that capability more discoverable here with this interface by saying, hey, just pick a node here and see what that will look like if this overlay were distributed on your node. You can do this on the command line as well. It's a really good way to develop new overlays and make a change to a template, see how it would change if it applied to that node. But right now you can't edit overlay templates in this interface, but that is the goal, to be able to edit the template, quickly see what it would do on the node, go back to the editor, make more changes, perhaps side by side. We're still working on that experience. So that's the majority of what we have to show here right now. Let me look back. Do we have more questions or more things in the chat? Let's see.
There's not more questions
No.
from the group just yet. You guys feel free to put that in the chat or the Q&A, either one. We will definitely get to them. I did have a question, and this is probably just part of my ignorance, but also sometimes that comes up because CIQ as a company, we do provide the support and the customization and all the things around Rocky Linux. And I see Rocky Linux or Rocky on here. Is there any barrier for people who are maybe not using Rocky, or what is kind of the relationship?
That's a good question. So right now, I've only built the web interface we're talking about, not the API here, right? I've only built the web interface for Rocky 9 today. And mostly, I think any issues we would have would be about making sure it's compatible with whatever version of Cockpit is in your system. So if you're I forget what version of Cockpit Rocky 9 has right now, but we've aligned this to the version that's with Rocky 9 right now. It may or may not need modification for slightly different versions on either side. We definitely should at least try building it against Rocky Linux 8, testing compatibility there. But it might be more difficult with, let's say, Ubuntu or Debian, depending on what Cockpit version they have. For other, let's say, like Rocky peer distributions, like CentOS or anything like that, it should be just fine on the Enterprise Linux 9 side of it. Again, we would need to build packages for 8 if you wanted to deploy it there. I see a question in the chat. Do we need to take any steps to enable Warewulf in Cockpit? So it is installed as an RPM. For our tech preview, at least, we're creating a separate product that you would have in addition to a Warewulf product from CIQ that distributes that RPM. You install that RPM, and then there is one file that you have to add right now to tell Cockpit how to log into the API. So that is stored at in your home directory at www.api.json. And that at minimum needs to include a username and password, and then by default it will attach to localhost and the default port. What we're going to do but have not done yet is add a login experience to this interface so that if you try to access this Warewulf tab and you don't have this file present, you'll be prompted to enter whatever connection information you need. and it will create this file for you. Right now, you have to add this file yourself. But yeah, other than that little bit of configuration, it's just a package that you install. So I see my IT security would flag plaintext password with their security tools. You're always going to need some kind of shared secret to allow access to an API. So, we're calling it password here. Other systems kind of skirt around this by calling it like an API access key or something like that. And perhaps we could do that. But there's always going to be some kind of secret that you have to give um, to an interface in order to a client of an API to allow it to access that API. Does this suggest CIQ will be building other apps for Cockpit? I would not say so. I think this has been a relatively good experience and a positive thing, but so far that I'm aware, it is the only such initiative within CIQ to do something with Cockpit. But if it goes really well, if we get a lot of buy-in, if we get a lot of interest in this, I don't see why not.
So I'm going to go back up just for a second because there's a couple of questions that I didn't want to just kind of get lost in the thread.
Oh, yeah.
Are the install instructions already available to the public on Git?
So the install instructions for the API are, yes. Instructions for the web interface are not a part. So first of all, the web interface is not part of the upstream community project. That is a CIQ add-on that we consume that public API, but the web UI is available to CIQ customers. We do still need to write the documentation for that. It'll be largely what I have just expressed, but we're working on the documentation for that as part of the tech preview process and making that available to people that are participating in that.
Right, exactly. And you guys can definitely get a hold of us. I mean, any form that you fill out on our website, ciq.com, it'll come to us and we'll figure that out. You can also just email me directly, rstein, STEIN @ciq.com.
Yeah.
Cool. John says, nice work. Thank you. You know how much work Jonathan and the team have put behind this. So thank you for that. Trevor.
I'm catching up on a few more in the back. So will there be a section to send IPMI commands or view BMC status or /console? So right now I'm thinking probably not console because I'm thinking console will be better integrated with other console solutions that I'm hoping you can just do natively in Cockpit anyway. One thing that is also good about being so for features that aren't already in this web interface, you can just go to a terminal in here and run Warewulf commands directly. So you can do that. But for normal like IPMI power commands, absolutely. I think that should be included here, and I would expect there to be like power on, power off commands in this menu here. Maybe like a power on all button up here, that kind of thing.
Also, yeah, there is a message in here about like the comments not going to the right place. So we are the hosts. Wait, are we the host? Host and panelist. Yeah. So you want to make sure that the question goes to hosts and panelists. If it's just the attendees, then you guys are just seeing it yourself.
And
so
I think that was just because we had skipped over a question earlier.
Oh, we skipped over.
I think we've gotten back to that.
Okay, good. Did you already answer the question about the IPMI?
Yes. So that was like power on, power off, and console. Yeah, definitely the power level stuff should be in here. We've just been prioritizing getting the configuration settings in first, but I would expect that. In fact, I think it's already on the backlog for a GA release of this.
Perfect. And then there's a question about training. Yes, 100%. We have a wonderful one-day training for companies, and it's been going really well. That's probably one of the top things that are selling right now because people are like, okay, let's get in, let's really understand it, and let's move on. So
Yeah,
yes,
and then we
absolutely.
can extend that if you have like an environment that you want advice on. Sometimes we'll wrap
Mhm.
some training with some professional services level stuff to look at your environment and give advice for how, or maybe have a second day with Q&A where you take what we went through with the first day and then have questions from your environment. That kind of thing can go really well.
Yes. Okay, Ian, I'm glad that you came in talking about Ubuntu. Okay. So Ubuntu 24.04 Cockpit appears to be 3.3.3. I'm happy to guinea pig as always. Thank you, Ian, taking the charge
So
here for Ubuntu.
yeah, I realized I could just check here on this terminal. So it looks like we have built against 323.1. So we would need to check and see what, if any, changes would need to be made trying to build it against another cockpit. But so far, that's what we've been building it against, is this one.
Yes.
Um, there is a question to clarify. So yes, the Warewulf module or extension or page for Cockpit is currently available only to CIQ customers. That's right. And if you are or want to be such a customer and would like access to this, definitely reach out. We would love to get you into the tech preview because the goal is to get feedback on it and see what you like, what you don't like, what is missing that we may have forgotten or that we just haven't gotten to yet. And that'll help us prioritize things as well.
Yes. Thank you for your willingness to do that, Omar. We'll definitely be in touch. To
Timeline for
clarify.
GA. There's not an official one right now, but hopefully not too long. We have a slowly growing list of things that we want to have done in terms of a GA. Um, uh, you know, not the least of which is just having all of the configuration options available. But I would, well, I don't want to make any promises here for the purposes of the webinar, but the goal is to have it be relatively quickly, not years from now or anything like that.
Yes. Okay, good. Yes. Texas Tech is definitely in. Okay. Oh, okay. I know it's early, but commercial open source. Jeff, we gave you the API.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, right now the plan is to keep the UI itself as part of a CIQ offering and not have it be contributed to the community project. Um, and there are a number of reasons for this. The most of which is just trying to get people. I don't know. How do I say this? Like the reality is, CIQ is contributing a lot of time and development into Warewulf, and we need to find a way to get people into support for it because we're getting a lot of community interest, but we want to find a way to demonstrate the value that CIQ is providing to that community. So this is one of those differentiators that we're trying to provide that we think is useful and that people will like, especially as part of an integrated solution with a cluster, but hopefully isn't a detriment to be missing in the community side. So that's the plan right now, is to have it remain part of a differentiated CIQ supported offering around Warewulf, but to always and forever keep contributing to the core Warewulf system and never have any like functionality gated into this or anything like it. And then another benefit to that is it hopefully will let us provide more integrations with other CIQ data sources. So one of the things we want to do is provide more and more like pre-built images for different use cases, pre-built overlays for different use cases that are specific to our customers' needs, and showcase those through this interface and have like library and catalog access to those things.
Awesome. Jess, thank you so much for posting the link to do like an official sign up for the tech preview. Yeah, whether you're a customer or not a customer, you're interested and you want to be part of it, definitely go to that link and sign up for that. And then there was also a question about this being, so we are recording it, yes. Our intention was to record. So
Yes, I heard an alert that we're recording at the beginning.
Okay, perfect. So yes, it is recorded and we will be putting it up live and available on our YouTube channel early next week. So you will definitely be able to rewatch that. So no worries. Okay. Wow. Thank you. And some of the other members of the Werewolf community are also popped in and joined. So thank you so much for being here and for all of your guys' hard work as well. Many, many thanks. Thank you so much for being here, for all the good work. Is there any last words that you have here for us, Jonathan?
No, like I said, I'm really excited to get this out into the open to show it off. I was busily filling out this interface yesterday, just writing copy for each of these things. I'm really happy with the way it's coming together, with the way things look in it. I do. It's been kind of a really great learning experience to get integrated with the Cockpit system. Love to talk about that, even on the community side, just what that experience was like. If anybody is interested in building Cockpit extensions, I know there were questions about that earlier in the chat as well. That I think we could save people some time if they wanted to dig into that. It's not quite as well documented as I wish it was, but ultimately it's come together pretty well.
Yeah, this is great. Very helpful. Thank you, everybody. All right. Well, so again, in the little chat there, or if you're watching it on the replay in the comments, there will be the sign up link. So it's ciq.com/products/werewolf #webui. So we are very excited to chat with you. We want to get this in your hands. We want your feedback. We want to continue to iterate. And thank you so much, Werewolf community, and everything that you've done, Jonathan.
No,
Okay.
thanks to everyone who's a part of it, and thank you, Rose, for being here and shepherding us through it.